In that meeting, President-elect Donald Trump will come face-to-face with the heads of intelligence agencies that he has been openly criticizing for weeks. The leaders of the CIA, FBI, and NSA, as well as the Director of National Intelligence, are all expected to give Mr. Trump his first full classified briefing on Russia's cyber attacks during the 2016 election. Now, the meeting follows yesterday's Senate hearing. National Security Intelligence Director James Clapper said, quote, "Our assessment now is even more resolute that the Russians were responsible for the hacks." For more on this, now we are joined by Mark Jacobson in Washington. He is the senior fellow at the Pell Center for International Relations and a former senior advisor to Secretary of Defense Ash Carter. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks, Anne-Marie.
So here we go. The intelligence community says we have the proof. We have concrete evidence that links Russia to this DNC hacking. Do you think that it's going to be good enough for Donald Trump, good enough to convince him that there is a connection here?
That's really the question. I'm not sure anything can convince him if he has these preconceived notions that he just seeks to support. What's going to be critical during this time is that the Director of National Intelligence explained that this isn't just about a cyber attack. This is, as the director said at the hearings yesterday, a multifaceted disinformation and propaganda campaign, including media manipulation, cyber attacks, front organizations, classic covert action designed to impact American attitudes and eventually influence U.S. foreign policy, all to Moscow's benefits. You know, this is not just one incident, and it's not going to end on January 20th, and it's a national security threat to the United States, and Donald Trump will have to, as president, rise to that challenge.
So if Donald Trump decides that he believes the evidence presented in front of him, that there is a connection between Russia and this hacking, but doesn't believe the motive, doesn't believe that it was specifically done in order to damage Hillary Clinton's bid for the presidency, does it matter? Does he have to believe that as well?
I think that this is based on my assessment of what's happening out of Moscow. You know, I don't believe that the Russians sat 10 years ago and said, we want Donald Trump to be president. I believe that the Russians were very happy just to damage Hillary Clinton. There were probably expectations that she would win, but they could damage her credibility. Their goal is damaging the U.S. system, making democracy seem an undesirable form of government. So in that sense, it doesn't matter what Trump thinks. The damage has been done. The challenge is going to be explaining to him that this is how the Russians operate, this is what Putin was doing. And yes, I think for the briefers, it will be a fairly awkward moment to explain that, yes, senior Russian leadership was cheering when they heard Donald Trump won. I certainly wouldn't want to be the one conveying that message and trying to maintain objectivity.
Yeah, I can almost imagine the tweets right now. Mr. Trump has repeatedly said that, he is interested in having a friendly relationship with Vladimir Putin. But if he is convinced by the report's findings, will he still be able to maintain that friendly relationship? Do you think that will make a difference?
Just watching Donald Trump over the last year and a half as a campaigner, I think that if he truly believes that Russia is a threat and he's going to have to change his worldview, that he's going to find some way to say, look, let's treat this again like a negotiation. That was my going in position. Now I'm going to be much harder. I'd rather negotiate with my friend Vlad than have to negotiate with an enemy. He can make an argument that way, and then we'll have to watch and see whether he does the job. But I think this is much more serious than any negotiation he's ever been in before. He has to understand that this is not only about the American way of life and our system of government, but this could cost real lives if the relationship between the Russians and the U.S. is not handled well.
And the other thing that was brought up in the hearing yesterday is that, sure, Russia may be a threat, but there are a number of other entities and countries that are improving their ability to hack our systems here. And there are a number of enemies out there with the same focus. With this discord, it's not a good look, as they say. And I'm wondering what America's enemies are thinking as they're watching this.
Right. I'd go back to my original point. Not only is this about cyber hacking to get information to be used as part of a broader disinformation propaganda campaign effort by Moscow, The Chinese are interested in the same thing. They are very good at cyber attacks. They are also very good at classic propaganda and disinformation. They use it internally for government control, and they like using it externally to help shape that foreign affairs environment and help give Beijing an advantage. I also think that non-state actors have done a great job in terms of terrorist recruitment, which involves the use of information to make young people think that they will have a better way of life if they join Al-Qaeda or ISIS. So this is a war of ideas across the globe of the likes we haven't seen since the Cold War.
Yeah. And finally, before we let you go, I want to ask you about this. Former CIA Director James Woolsey abruptly resigned from President-elect Donald Trump's transition team yesterday. There was a report out that said he did it because he was upset about Trump's plan to revamp America's intel agencies. Since then, the Trump administration says there is no plan. But I just want to get your take on this announcement. You know, what do you think?
Well, I've heard Jim Woolsey speak a number of times, and I think, in fact, in terms of reorganization of the intel agencies, that has to be handled very carefully, but it's not necessarily the wrong approach. There hasn't been a major reorganization since 2006, so I think it's worth looking at. What I saw in Woolsey's comments was more his concern that he had been brought on as an advisor, but he has no access to the meetings where the issues he's an expert in are being discussed. And that's actually a broader concern I have as Trump puts together his cabinet. He does have officials who disagree with him. You look at folks like Jim Mattis, the potential Secretary of Defense, the nominee whose hearings should be next week. You know, he's a great expert at this, at what he does. And I worry, though, that will Donald Trump listen to those voices, those experts outside who aren't part of his inner circle?
Mark Jacobson in Washington. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thanks, Anne Marie.